of course, yeah. And number 5, encouraging economic development. Number 6, improves life skills. Number 7, preparing for an uncertain future. Yeah. And the last one, increasing independence. Overall, entrepreneurship education for students is not only about creating new entrepreneurs, but also equipping them with skills and mindset that are useful in various aspects of professional and personal life. Now, together to a guest lecture from Dr. Chris Mureithi. Thank you. Dr. Chris, time is yours.
Thank you very much. In Kenya now it's good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning.
Yeah. 8 or 7 a.m. now. You are 4 hours ahead of us. So good morning, good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Chris.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to have this conversation with you today. Of course, I'm still looking forward to meeting you next week at Indonesia. I hope that I'll be able to see some of this physically. But today we want to have a conversation around entrepreneurial education and training. Yeah, because as Professor has said, we find that as in Indonesia, the small and medium enterprises are contributing to job creation and economic growth, which is similar to Kenya. We'll be looking at both education and training. And if you allow me, I would like to share my screen. Can I share from this end? Just a minute.
Doctor, with the network, Wi-Fi network?
No. I'm just I'm trying to share the screen. It's okay. Just 2 minutes. 1 minute. I think
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
I just want to share. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it's appear. Yeah, it's appear. Okay. Go ahead.
Can you see my screen? Is it clear on your end?
Yes, sure. We can see it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Fine. Thank you very much. So let me introduce myself. My name is Dr. Grace Mureithi. I'm a lecturer at the University of Eldoret in Kenya. University of Eldoret is one of the public universities in Kenya. It's actually one of the youngest universities. We were chartered, given a charter in 2014. So we are about 10 years old as a chartered university. My area of specialization is human resource management, and my area of interest in research is human resource development. So I'm very interested in aspects of learning, education, training, intellectual capital, human capital, and all the aspects and the components of intellectual capital. I also enjoy doing research. I enjoy doing research, so I'm always one way or another doing research. I'm also getting into the space of social entrepreneurship, and I hope that when I come to Indonesia, we shall be able to share a bit more around social entrepreneurship. Today, our lecture is on entrepreneurship education and training. And I'm going to share the experiences of Kenya. I'll give you a Kenyan context. My lecture is not around theories of entrepreneurship education. No. It's just about sharing the experiences of Kenya. And then we share, and you share with me also the experiences of the other end, so that we see what is missing, what is there, what are the opportunities that we have, and what are the challenges that we have. Let's compare the challenges and see whether we have similar challenges. And then let's speak together and see whether there is a way we can be able to recommend solutions to some of these challenges that you're facing. If you allow me, let me tell a little bit about Kenya so that you have basically background of when I say Kenya, what I mean. Kenya is a country in the African continent. It's one of the 54 countries in Africa. We are in the eastern side of Africa. Actually, we border the Indian Ocean. We have the coastal region is around the Indian Ocean. We're not a very big country. It's about 225,000 square miles, around 44 million in terms of population. And the largest number of our population is the youth. Those aged 35 and below, that's the largest section of the population. Other than that, also the country is quite inter-ethnic. We have around 44 different ethnic groups in Kenya. So it's really, there's a lot of diversity. It's a beautiful country with a lot of wild animals and fauna, and we enjoy that. So when I talk about Kenya, probably you'll be able to figure out, just in your heads, you'll be able to picturize what I'm talking about. So we'll talk about entrepreneurship and education, and I will give a Kenyan context. Okay. So this is an overview of what you're going to look at in this lecture. Of course, I'll begin with an introduction of the lecture, and then we'll look at the meaning of entrepreneurship education and training. We look at the relevance of it. Professor has already mentioned a bit of that, and I'm going to add to what he has said. Then we look at the outcomes of EET. EET is entrepreneurship education and training. What are the outcomes? What are the expected outcomes? We look at the factors influencing outcomes of EET, the approaches to EET, and then I'll give the Kenyan context. And the Kenyan context, I'll give the Kenyan context in relation to what I have discussed in terms of relevance, outcomes, and the factors and the approaches. There'll be a relation between those four sections. And then together we look at how then do we foster entrepreneurship education and training? How do we foster it? How do we enhance it? How can we benefit from it? And lastly, I'll be able to give a conclusion. So welcome to the lecture. And towards the end, I would like to hear your comments, and you can write down your questions so that we can have a conversation. So a simple introduction. I believe it's not just maybe in Kenya, it's in all countries, it's global. We are having challenges. We're having challenges with we have unprecedented challenges. Just around 3 years ago, we had COVID-19 that hit us very hard everywhere, not just in Africa, but globally. That was unprecedented. I believe none of us here had ever experienced something like a COVID-19 before. It was new, but it was a challenge that came, and we had to deal with it. There's continuous change in terms of climate, in terms of technology, in terms of we have social changes. If you look at the young people, the young people that you have today, we're calling them the Generation Z or Generation Z. If you look at how they look, their mindset is completely different from the previous generations that we have. The continuous change. The social challenges that we are facing in our countries are also probably unprecedented. I'll give an example in Kenya now. We are struggling a lot with food security. It's one of the issues we are struggling with. Sometimes we have a lot of rainfall, and somehow it becomes a problem. There's a lot of flooding and people die. At the beginning of this month, for instance, we lost more than 200 people out of floods. So the changes are happening from all sectors, socially, economically, the environment. We're experiencing all changes. But these challenges are our challenges. They are not happening in a vacuum. They are not happening they're not happening. They are not alien. They are ours. They're with us. We have to find a way to tackle this. We have to find a way to deal with the unpredictable changes. To do that, therefore, we need to be good. We need to have people who have the right competency. We need people with the right mind, the right attitude, the right knowledge, the right skills. We need entrepreneurs. We need, for the social problems, we need social entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurs to come up with creative and innovative ideas and innovations to deal with these challenges and to respond to these unpredictable changes. Therefore, we're saying to be able to do and that is why, sorry for that, education is able to rest ourselves this by going to
Putus sepertinya, Prof.
Sananya mungkin sinyalnya kurang bagus ya.
Oke, Prof.
Sorry, I think I got lost a bit. Am I still, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. But sometimes your voice is broken, I think, yeah.
Oh, my voice is broken.
Yeah, because of Wi-Fi, I think, and your connection, I think, it's not stable.
Now, is it better?
Okay, better, okay. Go on, yeah.
Okay, fine. So I was still at the introduction and I was giving a background on why we really need entrepreneurship education and training. And as I've said, is because we have to respond to these changes. We are living in a very volatile, complex, unpredictable environment. And to be able to survive in this environment, we must have the right competencies. And so entrepreneurship education is key in helping us, in enabling us to create a better society and transform the society. Climate changes, I don't know how climate changes are affecting you in Indonesia. In Kenya, we're really feeling it in terms, like I said, sometimes we have a lot of flooding, then the other times we have food insecurity because probably you don't have enough rain. There are a lot of issues around climate change. We need solutions to this problem. And so we therefore need to really look at our education. And we need entrepreneurial problems for. Okay, so sorry, I've gone back. So what is entrepreneurship education and training? I would like us to look at this. We find different researchers have different arguments. You'll find some others would only discuss entrepreneurship education and training as the interventions. Okay, that's the number one there. They say that it's just the interventions that we give. This is the programs, the training, the mentorship, the human resource development that we offer, okay, that will lead to changes in mindset and skills. Then that's basically the argument is that these are the programs that we offer towards enabling creation and development of knowledge and skills. Then we have another group of researchers who say it is the actual process. Okay, it's not just the interventions, but the process of developing knowledge and skills and attitudes that are necessary to practice in order to come up with to solve the problems that we have through entrepreneurship. But then we have the third group of others that talk about entrepreneurship education and training is both the interventions and the process. And I come from this school of thought that entrepreneurship education and training is both the interventions and also the process, because both matter. And as we continue with the lecture, we are going to see that. it's both the interventions that we have, the programs that we develop towards empowering people with knowledge and skills and the right attitude. The programs that we develop to change the mindset of people towards entrepreneurship. And then also the actual process of doing that. Okay, so in entrepreneurship education and training, we look at it, when you want to define it, is the whole aspect of value creation. Okay, it is important to bring the aspect of value creation when you discuss entrepreneurship, because what an entrepreneur does, they create value for the society by solving these problems, by seeing a business opportunity and taking risk to come up with the new products and services, to come up with the solutions to the problem. What entrepreneurs do, they create value. So the process of enabling or creating competencies for that entrepreneur to be able to add value or to create value to the society, that is entrepreneurship and education. I mean, entrepreneurship, education, and training. That process, and also the programs that we. So we can look at it that the third aspect, the third definition of entrepreneurship, education, and training combines number 1 and 2. And that's why I say I come from that school of thought. I believe that entrepreneurship, education, you cannot separate. Don't separate the interventions from the process. Okay, the intervention and from the process, and then you're also going to see how the outcomes become key. So now that we're in agreement on the entrepreneurship and education, let's move on to look at why it is relevant. Why is entrepreneurship, education, and training relevant? Professor said quite a number of points around this, and probably this would be an addition to some of them. But you see, entrepreneurship, education, and training is expected to lead. It's a driver of entrepreneurship. Okay, research has shown that entrepreneurs who have a background, who have gone through training and education in entrepreneurship, create jobs. They lead into creation of jobs. They have the ability to create jobs, and they enjoy doing that. And therefore, since entrepreneurship is seen as a major engine for economic growth and job creation, then entrepreneurship, education, and training becomes key, because it's a basis through which entrepreneurship is created. Just as Professor said, you said in Indonesia, small and medium enterprises are the foundation for economic growth. That is exactly the same in Kenya. In the last year, 90%, according to the statistics, the National Bureau of Statistics, Kenya, 90% in Kenya sector. And I don't know whether to say unfortunately, but our formal sector, am I clear? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, sure.
Our formal sector,
we can hear you. Okay.
Thank you. Our formal sector is declining. Our formal sector is declining. It's not able to absorb so many of the young people. Like I said initially, the largest population in Kenya is the young people. We have so many graduates every year from the universities and from the technical colleges. And when they leave the universities, we have around 50% of our graduates do not get jobs in the formal sector. And so they have to either create jobs, they have to find a way to create jobs. And then we have a section of the informal sector that is what we call necessity entrepreneurs. And this is huge in Kenya. The necessity entrepreneurs are those who get into entrepreneurship not by pull, but by push. The push factors, the problems that they're facing in their life pushes them into entrepreneurship. But that entrepreneurship feeds them. It's what puts the food on their table. Okay, it is what gives them a living. They live by that entrepreneurship. So for such people, we realize that it's important that they get this kind of training, because then it helps them to stabilize their businesses. So entrepreneurship is important. It is the backbone it's a backbone of economic growth, even in our country. And to be able to have sustainable entrepreneurship, to be able to create sustainable businesses, then we need entrepreneurship education and training. Another aspect of entrepreneurship is creativity and innovation. Basically, let's say entrepreneurship is based on creativity. It is not simply coming up with a business, but this business must be able to have. This business must be innovative, particularly when you talk about social entrepreneurship, where we must deal with social problems. And as I said in the introduction, we are living in a very unprecedented times. The challenges we are facing are changing every day. And so we have to be creative. We have to think. We don't even thinking outside the box to remove creativity. And creativity is a driver of innovation. So entrepreneurship education and training is really the driver for creativity and innovation. You should be able to bring out that. And then it leads to more ambitious businesses. What does this mean? If you look at, if you're to compare two entrepreneurs, an entrepreneur who has gone through entrepreneurship education or training, and how they do their businesses, and one who has not done that, you find that the one who has the competencies through training takes more risks, is a risk taker, and does more calculative risks, is more ambitious. The business is more innovative. The business is always changing. Also, they're always trying and attempting to change with the changes in the environment. That's what you're saying. An ambitious business. The business is not just there. But if you compare that with somebody who's probably gotten into entrepreneurship and has never had any training, you find they look like they're timing at the same point. Yes, they may have a business that keeps them going. You know, like the ones I said, necessity entrepreneurs. Necessity entrepreneurs normally are pushed into entrepreneurship by the problems that they face. And most of them don't have a background of education and training in entrepreneurship. So you find they have small businesses that remain small. They do the same thing over and over because they learn from experiences. They don't learn they learn just from their own experiences. And so they seem to be timing on the same place. They could even be in that business for 20 years, but there is no change in how the business is done. The business is done the same way. It's like 10 years of the same repeated experience. But entrepreneurship education and training allows an entrepreneur to become quite ambitious and more engaged in their business. Then we also talk about the population. I think I already mentioned that, but entrepreneurship will provide stable income flows for the vulnerable and those in the informal sector. And so it is important to train them, to have them trained so that they can be able to increase and stabilize their income flow. And then we said it's also a response to the increasingly globalized, uncertain, and complex world. I've already about that. And then you're saying it's a means to empowering people and organizations to create value for the public good. Entrepreneurship is about value creation. Anybody who gets into entrepreneurship and doesn't create value for the society, then that's not kind of entrepreneurship. You should be able, and I keep saying this, and I'll say it over and over, particularly when you come to social problems, entrepreneurship becomes key. Social entrepreneurship becomes key, where we are creating value for the society. We are creating value. We want to bring changes. We want to be able to deal with the problems that you're facing, and there are many, and they are very unpredicted. So these are not the only reasons. There could be many other reasons, and I hope that we can be able to continue building on this. But we definitely need entrepreneurship education and training because it is the foundation for sustainable entrepreneurship. It is a foundation that we need to have. If we are going to have successful entrepreneurship, then it is we want to ensure that we have the right knowledge, the right skills, and the right attitude. We have the right competencies to be able to get into entrepreneurship. And then that's where we can benefit from entrepreneurship. If we have the right knowledge, skills, and attitude, then we can be able to benefit from that. For the younger people, the aspect, the mindset. Let me not even just say the younger people. And I think I'll talk about this when I talk about the Kenyan context. That there are still some people who don't understand the basis of entrepreneurship. There are still a number of people who think that entrepreneurship is for those who did not make it academically. In Kenya, that has always been it's been a misconception. But with entrepreneurship education and training, we are able to change that mindset so that people understand, the beauty of entrepreneurship and what it can do for both economic and social development. So, two problems that I want us to reflect on. First, can entrepreneurial success be taught? And can we really, is it possible to teach somebody, to train somebody until they get into entrepreneurship and succeed? That's a reflection. And the second problem, so if yes, if we answer yes, then what is the best way to teach it? Because this is where we seem to have issues. We agree that it is possible to see, because if it wasn't possible, if the first problem, the answer was no, then we will not be having this lecture. But the reason we have this lecture is because I believe we agree that entrepreneurial success can be taught. And that's why we've said entrepreneurial education and training is relevant. It can be taught. Some theories say, well, some people are born with the entrepreneurial characteristics, just like leadership, the leadership trait theory. There's some theories that argue that some people have. But even those people who may have some of those traits, there's so much more to learn in entrepreneurship and education and training. There's so much more to learn, particularly now that things keep changing so fast. There's so much more that we can learn. So yes, it is possible to teach and train entrepreneurs so that they can be successful and so that they can have more stable, more sustainable businesses, so that they can be able to solve the social problems more effectively and more efficiently. But then the second question that we need to reflect on is, what is the best way to teach? We agree we can teach, but what is the best way to teach? So let's continue the lecture and probably we'll be able to answer this question as we continue. So let's look at the types of education, entrepreneurship education and training. When we talk about entrepreneurship education and training, you see there are two aspects. They actually educate. There's actually education and there is training. There's education and training. And education programs are general, very general. We find them within the learning institution. It could be at the primary level or at secondary level. I don't know what you call them at your place, but we have primary, that is, and we're going to see that later. And then we have secondary, and then we have the university level or the tertiary level. So this one focuses on building knowledge and skills about and for the purpose of entrepreneurship. I have highlighted that in red because we're going to discuss that in a little while. For and about. It's really just general theory and the philosophies and rationale of entrepreneurship. And it's not the outcomes of entrepreneurship education the outcomes are not immediate. I mean, the application of the knowledge is not immediate. Yeah, because if you're teaching, for example, a child in primary school about entrepreneurship, they may not apply that knowledge immediately particularly depending on how the curriculum is set. But the training programs, these are training programs are for the people already in entrepreneurship. These are practitioners already practicing. I hope you're able to see the difference. One is within the system, within the learning system, that is education, but the training programs, this is a person who is already practicing entrepreneurship. They could be already well established. They could be the necessity entrepreneurs that I talked about. They could be vulnerable. They could be the unemployed, but in their own small, they're doing something outside the school environment. So these ones, we train them. This is training. When you go, for example, if you are training on record keeping to a group of farmers, okay, and you're teaching them on record keeping, which is very important for entrepreneurs, then you call that entrepreneurship training. But when you're teaching a group of children, pupils or students in class about entrepreneurship, then that is entrepreneurship education. That's why I said entrepreneurship education and training. Both are important. Like I said, the entrepreneurship education begins, it's where we begin to create knowledge about entrepreneurship. And it is where we begin to change the mindset of people about it. Remember, for the entrepreneurship education, for the children or the students in school, some of them may not have started, some of them may not even have interest in it. So the education is supposed to change their mindset, supposed to create knowledge, to let them understand what is entrepreneurship, why is it relevant, how can they create jobs, how can they become change makers through entrepreneurship. That is the kind of knowledge we're talking about. This is where we are teaching them about business models, about business plans, about identifying opportunities and social problems in the society, about coming up with relevant, innovative solutions that they could apply to bring changes in the environment. This is where we are teaching them about the relevance of entrepreneurship. This is how we are teaching them about taking risks, and teaching them that failure in entrepreneurship, failure is not failure. Failure is a learning step, is a step towards success. And this is where we teach the young people about that, or about entrepreneurship. So we prepare them to be entrepreneurs. We create the right skills. We give them the right skills. We give them the tools and the methods of entrepreneurship. They are probably not yet into entrepreneurship. Let me give you just maybe I don't know, call it a story or just an experience that I had in one of my students. I was teaching a class on entrepreneurship, and they were that year students at the university, and there was just this one unit about professional ethics in entrepreneurship. And I taught them, and then at the end of the class, I asked them, how many of you really want to get the Bachelor of Commerce students, and asked them, how many of you will create jobs when you graduate? How many of you want to create jobs? And how many of you want to look for jobs? And I realized that most of them still, the biggest issue they had was, where will we get money? Where will we get capital to create jobs? You see, they kept arguing that you need a lot of capital. And for them, lack of capital was a limitation or a hindrance for them to create jobs. And then I realized that these students, they were in that year at the university, still had a very wrong mindset about entrepreneurship. For them, it is not the opportunity that is, there is no seeking about it, but seeking, for them, they would rather have the money first before they have an idea. So my point is, entrepreneurship education is important and key, particularly for the young people who may grow up and in their homes, maybe they are not got any values around entrepreneurship. And so we need to help them understand what entrepreneurship is about. And it can be taught at whatever level. It could be from the primary 5-year-old, 4-year-olds, can start learning about entrepreneurship. They can begin learning about entrepreneurship. They can start getting the mindset shift and getting the skills and get in small bits they can be taught. And then now the training programs are for those who are already in entrepreneurship, those who are already practicing entrepreneurship. Why is it important for them? It's important because we said, one, if I may look at those who get into entrepreneurship without a basis, any basis, they are pushed into entrepreneurship. As I said, you realize that they run their businesses based just on their experiences, which is okay, but which may not be sufficient in the current world that you're in, with the changes in technology and the changes in even in the customer needs and preferences. But then we also have some entrepreneurs who maybe already went through entrepreneurship education. They are already now into entrepreneurship. They are practicing. Do they need training? That would be a question. Do they need training? And the answer would be yes. They will also need training because, as I said, we have continuous changes. Every day, you can never say you have learned enough. I know even professor here will always learn something new. You're a professor, but every day there's always something new that you're learning. So even if you're an entrepreneur for 35 years and you have done all the entrepreneurial education, that there will always be something new you can learn. In every sitting, there's something new you can learn. So there's also need for training those who are in entrepreneurship, particularly on the change in the digital literacy. I've seen that in Kenya. I've seen people who've been in business for long, but the digital, the changes, the use of the digital space, they are struggling. You find people who are not able, for instance, to let me give you an example of this. I have a friend who does poultry farming, and he does poultry farming and egg production. And then there's this young man who buys eggs from him. The young man does not keep any poultry, does not have any chickens. He just buys the eggs from the farmer and then sells them online, sells all his eggs online. He doesn't have a single chicken. So the farmer does all the farming, the young man. So this farmer was talking to me and saying, look at this young man. I mean, he doesn't have a single chicken, but he makes more money than I do as a farmer. Why? Because the young man has taken advantage of the digital space. He's selling his eggs online, and he doesn't have to keep any chicken. He just buys them from the farmer. And so I was telling the farmer, now you need to be digital also. You need to take advantage of technology. You could be selling your eggs. You see, he's been an entrepreneur for a long time, but has fear of getting into the digital space. And that's the reason I'm saying that entrepreneurship, education, and training is key. Training is also key for those who are already in entrepreneurship. They still have something that they can learn. So when you're talking about entrepreneurship education and training, this is what you're talking about. The general knowledge about entrepreneurship that we get in education, but also the specific knowledge and skills that we get through training. Specific because if you're training somebody who is already in the field, they will tell you their needs because they know their needs. They will tell you, like this farmer was saying, I am having challenges with the digital, moving to the digital space. I'm not very comfortable marketing my product online. I don't know how to do it. And that person needs specific training on that. Another person will say, I don't know how to keep records. I have been in business for long, but I'm struggling in doing my record keeping. That person is calling for specific training. Another person will say, I don't know how to respond, to the changes. To my customers, I don't know how to. My customers have preferences that I'm not able to respond to. So you find that training programs are very specific, and they're driven towards the needs of the entrepreneur, specific needs of the entrepreneur, while the education programs are really general in their provision. So what are the expected outcomes of entrepreneurship education and training? What do we expect if we train, we educate, we educated the young people in schools, or we train the entrepreneurs in the industry? What are we expecting from that? Number one is entrepreneurial mindset. Entrepreneurial mindset is a growth mindset. It's not a fixed mindset. You have to be willing to grow, to move from one step to another, to grow, to continuous improvement. So one of the expected outcomes of this education and training and entrepreneurship is a change in how we see things, a change in how we identify. If we see what other people are calling social problems, an entrepreneur sees opportunities. That's a mindset. When other people are saying, that there is food insecurity, this is a problem, an entrepreneur sees an opportunity that they could come up with an enterprise. They could come up with an innovative solution to the food insecurity. So that entrepreneurial mindset, we want to see that change. We want to see young people who are more creative, innovative. We want to see young people who don't look at entrepreneurship as like I said, one of the challenges we've had in Kenya with entrepreneurship for young people is that for a long time, it was perceived that those who get into entrepreneurship are those that failed. Like when you don't make it in the academic world, and you fail, then you go into entrepreneurship. That has been the perception for a very long time. Unfortunately, then that perception created a very poor mindset towards entrepreneurship. And so one of the purposes of entrepreneurship education is to change that mindset, to let people understand the beauty of entrepreneurship, to let the young people understand that anybody, it doesn't matter, even if you're an engineer or a mathematician or a physician, you have a space in entrepreneurship. It is not for those who failed, in their school and then they go into small businesses. That no, we need to change that mindset. Like you already said, and Professor also said this, entrepreneurship is a backbone for economic and social development and growth. We need to see if for sure we agree that entrepreneurship is a backbone for economic growth, then we must create that mindset. We must be willing to undergo these programs, because then that's how we get there. It's through entrepreneurship education and training that we get into that space, into that economic growth and social development that we want. So that mindset is an outcome, is an expected outcome. It is one way of measuring whether your education, entrepreneurship education and training is really working or not. By seeing
Di tempat saya mandek ya, Mas Ryan.
Iya, sama Prof.
Sama
Terputus
ya?
lagi sepertinya. Oke, Prof.
Terus, oke. Ya, kita tunggu aja kalau begitu.
have disappeared.
Dr. Grace? Yeah, okay.
Okay, is my screen, can you still see my screen, or do I share it again? Oh, okay, fine. These are the challenges of technology.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. So I was on entrepreneurial capabilities, and I was just saying it's one of the outcomes of the capabilities, the competencies. And this comes very well with the mindset shift. This is really, once there's that mindset, because if people don't see the relevance of entrepreneurship, it becomes very hard even for them to really be capable of getting entrepreneurship. So the entrepreneurial capabilities, we want to see more creative entrepreneurs, more innovative entrepreneurs, competencies, the ability we want to see entrepreneurs who can identify problems and come up with innovative solutions. And I underline and emphasize innovative solutions, because it is not enough for entrepreneurs to come up with a solution. We don't want solutions that are not sustainable. We want sustainable and innovative solutions. That capability is something that should be attained through entrepreneurship education. We want to see attitude. What kind of behavior we have? We are, I don't know how it is in Indonesia, but in Kenya we struggle a bit with the aspect of integrity. We have a lot of fake products. We have a lot of fake counterfeit products in the market. And unfortunately, these counterfeit products are put in the market by entrepreneurs. Somebody sits down somewhere and counterfeit Coca-Cola, for instance. Before we've seen counterfeit of practically everything, cosmetics and other products. We've seen a lot of counterfeits in the market. And they are entrepreneurs. But you see, that is unethical. So we're saying, can we, from entrepreneurship education and training, we expect ethics, we expect entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs who are ethical in their businesses. Those are the capabilities that we're talking about. We are talking about entrepreneurs who will be able to, who are innovative enough who are proactive, that we don't sit and wait for problems to occur, and that's when we are coming up with solutions. We want entrepreneurs who are proactive enough to come up with solutions to our problems. They have the capability to do that. So those are the capabilities to do. Then also the entrepreneurial status in terms of people getting into the entrepreneurship space. Like we said, small and medium enterprises are the backbone of economic development. In Kenya, they're the ones creating more employment. So we need to see more entrepreneurs. That's the status we're talking about. We need to see more entrepreneurs. We need to see if we are offering entrepreneurship education and training and it is effective, then we will have more entrepreneurs. We'll have more young people getting into entrepreneurship. We'll reduce youth unemployment, because with status, we will have more people into entrepreneurship. We will have more creative entrepreneurs. One of the challenges I see in Kenya in terms of entrepreneurship is duplication. Duplication, like somebody starts a shop, like you're selling probably clothing, and then in another 6 months, the whole of that street, everybody is selling the same type of clothes at the same price from the same, and there is no innovation really per se. And so within 1 year, then these people, their income levels reduce because they are competing for the same customers in the same space. Then becomes a challenge again. Okay? So we want to see more innovations, as an outcome of entrepreneurship education. More outcomes, more people going out into other more innovative spaces. And then of course this performance, very important, particularly for entrepreneurship training. We want to see increased profits. We want to see increased sustainability of businesses and growth of the businesses. We want to see a business we want to see creation and diversity of the businesses. We want to see diversity in terms of the products, and these are the outcomes of it. If we are able to see this, then we're able to say, this is entrepreneurial success. Our programs are successful. If we can see a shift in the mindset and increased competencies, more people getting into entrepreneurship, particularly the younger people, and also increased, income flows for those already in entrepreneurship. So those are the outcomes that we. But then related to this is what we call the 4 C's of ET, related to the outcomes. Entrepreneurship education and training is meant to enhance communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. These are the bases of entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur must be able to communicate and tell their story. They must be able to sell, they must be able to market their product, they must be able to create collaborations with other people which need to communicate. They must be creative. I think I've spoken of creativity and innovation over and over because it's a, I mean, with the world we are in today, we cannot have entrepreneurs but not creativity. They must be innovative because we have the changes are too much. The world is complex. It needs creativity and critical thinking. Critical thinking is also important. So this is those capabilities we're talking about, and under the entrepreneurial. I mean, if I may go back, it's like if you talk about the entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial capabilities, then you see them through the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking. And that's what we hope to enhance through education and training of our. Some of the factors that may influence those outcomes are the context, that is the economic, the political, and the cultural context. And I'm going to discuss this a little bit more when I give you the kind of the economy that we have, and mostly the policies, the political, I mean, the policies that are created and really influence those outcomes. Because if we don't have the right policies around entrepreneurship education, then we will not achieve the outcomes. And then the individual characteristics, the profile of the people, the interest of the people. Like I told you, you find a lot of young people for a long time have grown up looking at entrepreneurship as meant for those probably who did not make it. With that kind of mindset, if that mindset does not change, it becomes very hard to get into entrepreneurship capability. So for the kind of person we are training, what are they bringing? Who are they? Do they have interest in entrepreneurship? How do they view it? And then characteristics of the programs themselves, the curriculum, you know, the opportunities, the mentorship that we give, the pedagogy that we use. Oh, this is important. I will, as we continue, we'll look again at the context and the characteristics of the program, because those two have really affected entrepreneurship education and training in Kenya, particularly the context around the policies created by the government, and also how we offer the programs in entrepreneurship education and training. So some of the approaches, I think I told you earlier on, if you remember, there's a place where I highlighted in red, and I said I will be discussing that more. This is where we are now. We have 3 approaches to entrepreneurship education and training. We have first education about entrepreneurship. We have education for entrepreneurship, and we have education through entrepreneurship. Education about entrepreneurship is theory about entrepreneurship. It's simply about the theories, the philosophy, the rationale of it. You are basically just educating people about it. And this is what happens in our education system. They're teaching about it, about it. Just creating knowledge, the know-how about it. Then you have education for entrepreneurs. This is where you're preparing, particularly the young people or the students, to become entrepreneurs. This is where they learn how to write business plans. They learn about different business models. They learn about, all those. They learn not just about entrepreneurs, how to become an entrepreneur, how they can get into the education for entrepreneurs. But the one that is the best of them all is education through entrepreneurship, where you don't just teach about or for, but this is practical. This is where the students practically develop. I mean, they identify, you put them in a space, you immerse them into challenges. You work with the community, immerse them into challenges, let them identify challenges. Let them identify those challenges that are there in the study and see them not as challenges, but as business ideas. Let them be able to identify business ideas, let them come up with the possible solutions, and then they implement the solution, and then, they go through the whole process of entrepreneurship, acquisition of resources and seeing where do you put these resources, and practical application of the knowledge. This is where we educate through experiential learning, through service learning, through situation learning, where you actually immerse the students into, so that they don't learn from theory, but they learn practically. I will ask, I don't know, I'll just leave you with that in mind. I don't know whether that is how entrepreneurship education is in your country, but that is not how it is in my country. It is the best way, is the best approach of educating, of entrepreneurship education and training. But unfortunately, we find it is not what is on the ground. We find a lot of education about and for entrepreneurship. I will be coming back to this slide as we continue. So just keeping it somewhere at the back of your mind, we may refer to it again.
Dr. Chris?
Yes?
Okay. Dr. Chris, you talk almost 1 hour. I think it's time to question and answer session, I think. Yeah. I think it would be interesting, I think, for our discussion today. What about?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, fine. I thought we could do the question and answer at the very end, but you want us to, do we have them at the very end, or do we start?
Yeah, I think it would be better for us to make a question and answer sessions, I think. Okay. Do you mind?
My worry is that will I be able to finish this section if we do the question and answer now?
Okay. Can you finish in 10 minutes?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Let me finish and then we do the question and answer.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So let me give a Kenyan context, because it really then brings home everything that we have discussed. In the Kenyan context, let me skip this and just go here. The Kenyan system, we have had 3 systems of education. We had one pre-independence. Immediately after independence, we had what we call the 743. This system, the focus was simply on just citizenship, enhancing citizenship before justice. But at this time, Kenya's population was very low. We didn't have challenges of unemployment. We didn't have challenges of rural-urban migration. We didn't have those. But in the 80s, from the 80s going up, the population rose. We had a lot of unemployment, had a lot of problems, a lot of rural-urban migration, a lot of issues on the climate and everything. And so the government changed the system to the 844 system. And the hope was that the main goal was to put people with employable skills. I mean, they were supposed to get into self-employment. The 844 system was meant to now solve the problem of unemployment. Unfortunately, it was very theoretical. It taught entrepreneurship around what I said. If I go back here, it was education about entrepreneurship. Okay. The little entrepreneurship that was taught in that it was about entrepreneurship and not through entrepreneurship. And so we did not really enjoy the fruit, the outcomes that we're talking about. We were not seen in this. It became very academic and very exam oriented. And so we ended up with so many young people graduates but not employed. And then now in 2017, the government introduced that system, which is called the competency-based curriculum. Now, this competency-based curriculum is really looking at education. Education through entrepreneurship through education. And this system is based on 7 pillars. If you look at these 7 pillars, they relate to the 4 C's of entrepreneurship. And so it is really hoped that this system can really create entrepreneurs from young people, that we can actually get our students all the way from primary school, creating, creativity, becoming critical thinker, becoming innovative, and so that they can grow into becoming entrepreneurs. But these are the problems we are facing. And that's the reason why we're worried that even with the new system, we are not sure whether we are going to be able to really still be able to get the outcomes that we talked about. One is the design of the curriculum. You will find that in most, particularly even in the universities, the curriculum is set in such a way that we don't have a lot of entrepreneurship courses. Okay, you have, like in my university, there is only one program of entrepreneurship that is done by all the students, one course that all the students do. The curriculum is then not giving space for growth. It's not giving space for entrepreneurship. The other one is the shortage that probably the spelling. There are the shortage of qualified teachers. You find that even in the curriculum-based system that the government has implemented, the teachers were not trained on entrepreneurship, and they're not trained how to teach entrepreneurship. And so that takes us to the other problem of pedagogy. How do we offer our trainings in entrepreneurship? It is still very traditional, very static, where it's still teacher-oriented and teacher-centered other than students. We're still having those problems, and that is going to affect the outcome. Then, of course, the shortage of funding. Entrepreneurship education requires a lot of funding, particularly when you're talking about education through entrepreneurship, where the learners are expected to learn through experiential learning. You need a lot of funding for that, and unfortunately, that funding is coming. Then, of course, we have lack of policies supporting EET. Like I said, remember we said one of the factors that influence the outcomes of EET is economic and also political context. So that we find the government, for instance, has gone ahead and changed the system of education, but that is where it ends, and changing the system. But they're not followed by policies that support that system. It becomes a bit difficult to experience the outcomes that you expect. And then lack of collaboration with the industry and the community. When the entrepreneur is supposed to solve problems in the community, then they should be able to work with that. So when we are talking about immersing the students into the challenges in the community, it means we need to work with the community so that we're able to create innovative solutions to the problems so that we can create value for the society. And so this is my last slide. So what do we do then? How do we foster entrepreneurship? In relation to everything that we have discussed, we need to develop competencies of education. We need to develop it has to begin with educators having the competencies. Then you also need to create awareness on the benefits of it. In this lecture, we have discussed the relevance of EET. We need to be able also to do that for other people, for them to understand the relevance. Then there needs to be collaboration with all the stakeholders, the government, the community, the industry, with the learning institutions, so that EET is becomes a collaborative affair, so that then we're able to solve problems together, we're able to identify opportunities together. Then you need to develop a systematic model. Yeah. Unfortunately, most of the models we use in entrepreneurship are not context-based. We need to develop models that work for us. The models that work for Indonesia may not work for Kenya. So we need to be able to develop models of entrepreneurship that work for us. Then, of course, research, we need to do a lot of research that will guide our policies. And lastly, the government or even the private sector must put a lot of funding towards entrepreneurship. So I conclude by saying that I'll simply go. There's a lot of promising outcome for EET. There is hope for entrepreneurship education, and we need it. We agree that it is relevant. Okay, but for us to succeed, there's need for deliberate conversation, like what we are doing today. This conversation is important. We need to continue having more conversations around entrepreneurship, education, and training. And lastly, then the practical realization of it will contribute to more resilient societies and more competitive local communities, a more inclusive society, more just